So this is episode 2 of We Are C2, where we've kind of subtitled it "Getting to Know the Family," and you guys get to be the second guinea pigs. Randy and Teresa are still members of the church after doing this on Saturday. And we think. I don't really know. I guess we haven't assembled since then, have we? But anyway, for those of y'all that are watching now or later, this is Mike and Debbie Haas, and rather than spending a lot of time introducing them and then talking to them, we're just going to talk to them and then introduce them that way. So just by way of introduction, Mike and Debbie, how long have you guys been a part of the C2 family?
I would say 13, 14 years, somewhere in that range. I think it was around 2004 or 5, was it, when we came to Crossroads? Maybe it's longer.
Hannah was 4, so.
Okay, maybe it's 16 years.
We don't know.
It's been a while.
Yeah. I think it was in the spring of 2005. So is what I think. I think you were like January, February, March into that time period of
right.
2005. Yeah. Very good. And when you first arrived at Crossroads, how did you hear about us?
Well, you guys had a worship leader that we kind of followed over from our older church, or the church we were actually going to at the time. So we were going to Crossroads and another church at the time. We were coming to Crossroads on Wednesdays, and we were going to the other church on Sundays. And then about 4 months of that, then we just essentially moved completely over to Crossroads.
Okay. Yeah. Do you remember what we were teaching or preaching when you guys first started coming on Sundays? You remember the series that we were doing?
No, I couldn't say.
Sorry, Daryl. No.
That's okay. I remember. I don't remember what I was teaching or preaching, but I do remember that worship pastor and I were going to a conference down in Texas. We were going to a pastor's conference in February of that year. And Mike and you guys were coming for Awana on Wednesday nights, right, and kind of hanging out with the kids for Awana, and Chris had Mike doing PowerPoint for us.
Yes, I was putting them together when we were using PowerPoint and stuff. So I was putting them together each week and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the hook was you're already serving in our church. You might as well just start coming.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, that's funny. So how are you guys involved in serving the body at C2? What ministry teams, groups, or personal ministries do you guys have?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go first.
All right. First off, we are deacons at Crossroads. We've been deacons for, 4 or 5 years, something like that. We're both, we both handle the 7 years. We handle the finances at Crossroads. I do the writing of the checks and doing the books. Debbie does everything else. I run the first impressions and guest relations ministries. Let's see, we work in nursery. I don't know, probably we do a lot of the event planning, things like that as well. So, do you want to say anything?
No, I mean, I think Daryl's given me the title, financial secretary, treasurer, I don't know, one of those or both of those or whatever. So I help with the finances of the church, and in charge of the counters. They're the ones that actually count the offerings and get it to the bank. Like Mike said, we both actually work in the nursery together, and I help with the women's retreats.
Yeah.
And I guess I do handle hospitality as well. So.
Yeah. You guys, and a lot of times, Mike comes up early on Sunday mornings and does things, and usually says, "Is there anything else that needs to be done?" Mike usually helps you prepare Lord's Supper.
Right.
Help get Lord's Supper. That's one of his deacon responsibilities, and
I guess work with baptisms. So,
yeah.
people go in and out of the baptismal.
Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a lot, and then you guys co-lead one of our really active groups.
Oh, we forgot that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they love you, small group. They just we're at the bottom of the list.
Sorry.
I will say though, with us starting Crossroads, and I did all that finance part, the bill paying, the keeping the books and all that stuff, over those first quite a few years. And we'd give it off to somebody, and I would always get it back, and it would be a mess, and it would literally take me hours to get it all correct, and it was so stressful.
Days.
Yeah, it was so stressful, and it was so. And since Debbie has taken that over, and it's just like she's so organized, and I don't tell her enough. I try to tell every once in a while how much this pastor's wife appreciates her in doing that ministry, because that just took such a huge stress and load off of me. And I feel for her, because I know what that stress is and how she feels with that stress sometimes. But that's something that ministry is just something that I will always be very, very thankful and grateful for. And it's behind the scenes, and people don't know that it takes so much time to do that kind of stuff, and to do it correctly and accurately, and in a way that if we're audited, we've got everything covered. And it's so important. And they do a really, really good job with it, and we really appreciate you guys taking care of that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I was really surprised. I was looking at a Excel spreadsheet I have that I kind of keep track of Visa payments and things like that. And I started that when I started writing the bills and stuff, because it was a little jumbled when I took it over. And I've been doing that part for like 11 years now. It's like, man, that doesn't seem like it. So
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we just don't even ask. Mike and Debbie, do you guys need a break?
No,
we don't
not
ask.
allowed.
We're afraid they might say yes, and it's just one of those jobs that it would be and nobody thinks about it. Nobody thinks about how the bills get paid, how the books are kept. Even the four ladies that help Debbie with offering, counting offerings. And of course nowadays, we've nearly everything. I think we get 1 or 2 checks a week now, but
Yep.
when we normally meet, counting the cash, counting the offerings, but about 60% before, wouldn't you say, Debbie, about 60% of our giving was online?
Yeah, probably 50 to 60.
Yeah, before we went to live streaming.
Yeah.
And COVID-19 hit, but there was a time where 100% was checks and cash, and the all had to be counted. It all had to be accounted for, the right processes, how it got deposited, and multiple check signers, and just all those things, and just keeping track of all those things is just in accurate books that anybody could open up and be able to understand. We really appreciate you guys and the hard work you do on that, for sure. Let's see. So I think I know the answer to this. I'm pretty sure, but for those who don't, are you guys Kansas City natives? Born and raised in Kansas City?
Yes.
Okay.
I've lived all my life in Blue Springs. There might have been a short period that was in Independence. And then Mike's lived in Independence, Blue Springs area all his life.
Yeah, other than my military service. So.
Okay. And what branch of the military did you serve in?
I was in the Navy for 4 years. So. So I'm mainly out in San Diego. So
And you guys live, what town do you live in now?
Blue Springs.
Okay. And so y'all met while you were in the Navy, right, Mike?
we started dating and stuff while I was in the Navy. We met right before I went into the military. My best friend introduced me to her, and my best friend and her best friend kind of got us together at the time. So
Okay. So far, we're two for two on that. That was the same with the Ballards. Yeah, they were a blind date. Were you guys a blind date?
No, I could see.
Okay. I'll give you that one. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Your family background, brothers, sisters.
Let's see. Well, I have, like I said, I grew up in Blue Springs. I have a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. And I don't know, that's about the extent of my family background. My mom actually lives in Green Valley now, not too far from where you guys used to live.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
my brother has 2 children and they live in Shawnee. So they're not too far away either.
Right. And for me, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Independence and stuff. My parents divorced when I was young. I had a younger brother and an older sister. My sister now lives up in Ohio, and my brother here lives locally. He's actually staying with my mom right now, but she's had a lot of health issues and stuff, so it's been good for her to have him there. So
Yeah, that's good. That's good. What do you guys do occupationally? What do you do for a living?
I work at a drug testing lab. I work in the accounting department.
Okay. And you've worked there for a long time, right?
This November, it'll be 31 years.
Wow. I don't think I knew how long you'd worked. 31 years.
Yep.
The same job.
Yep. That was my job after college. So.
Wow. You don't hear that much. That's crazy. Well, congratulations on that, Debbie.
So thanks.
I know how stressful your job is. Wow. 31 years. It hasn't always been that stressful, has it?
It has its ups and
Yeah.
downs.
And down.
Just depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Mike?
I work in the healthcare industry right now with working in a company that handles mobility needs for disabled people. Right now, of course, I'm furloughed from the company for a little bit, but I'm the service department manager, and probably in the next month or so, I'll get back to work. So right now, I'm just mainly a house husband.
Yeah, which you kind of, there's parts of, especially with both of you being full-time workers, but Debbie working in Lenexa, you working closer to home usually. Don't you kind of do most of the meal planning and cooking?
Yes. I don't like to cook, so I let him do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I handle the cooking around the house, getting groceries, stuff like that. It just makes it easier. I get off usually a little bit earlier than she does, so I can go by the store and get dinner started. I mean, there's times when we won't eat till 8 o'clock, but usually, we try to eat by 7 o'clock at night. But it just makes it easier. So
for a while, the traditional rules were kind of switched. He did the housekeeping, kind of the cooking or whatever, and I would do the mowing.
Very good. Yeah.
Because I like doing it. So
whatever works. I mean, if that's like you said, what you like, why not?
Yeah, Mike likes to cook, so he makes a really good fried chicken, and he's added chicken pot pie, which is that's pretty good as well. So
yeah, he does have some good stuff I've had before. That's pretty good. So it works.
Which,
and like you said, was you drive so much. There's so much time and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's great how you guys work together to just make your family work. And
Well, and that's what it is. It's about, making everything work. I mean, it doesn't have to be, the wife comes home and she has to do this, 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 and this. You
Yep.
just make it. You just make it to where the family's just a family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's awesome.
Which reminds me of another ministry you missed.
What's that?
Burger Barn.
Oh yeah.
And Mike is really kind of the key organizer and griller at the Burger Barn. Mike and Daniel and I work together on that, but Mike does a lot of the legwork and planning and behind the scenes stuff, and kicked me out of grilling years ago. And I smashed the burgers, and Mike does not allow the burgers to be smashed.
Well, it isn't me; it's our customers. We wouldn't sell out if you smashed all the burgers.
That's right.
It wouldn't be as juicy.
That's right. And then, and I think you mentioned it, but Mike, when it comes to like our men's retreat, Mike does a lot of the behind the scenes planning of our men's retreats when we do them, and even when we do couples retreats and things. But the meal planning that's kind of Mike's thing, even for the men's retreat as well.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make sure you guys eat well.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, the guys eat good when we have a men's retreat. Steak and baked potatoes, and yeah, we eat really well. No doubt. Tell us a little bit about your family, your kids, and how long you've been married, and how old the kids are.
Sure. We've been married, 93. This will be 27 years this year. So in June, it's going to be 27 years. We've pretty much lived where we're at since Josiah was born, or a little bit after Josiah was born. He's turning 23 this year. Yeah, he's getting old. And Hannah's turning 20 this year. So both of them have been, with Crossroads pretty much most of their life. I mean, they had a few years beforehand that they weren't, but they were involved in, throughout the ministries and stuff. I think Hannah does serve also in the kids ministry and stuff. And then Josiah, he actually works at the same place I work at. So he recently started there about 6 months ago. So.
Very good. Yeah. So tell us about your journey of faith. How did you come to Jesus? How did that come about? How long has it been? How did God work on the two of you together? Just unpack your spiritual journey story.
I always hate that question. I know that's not right, but and I think that I just that's a hard thing for me. It's not that I had a difficult childhood or anything. I grew up in the church, and going to church, I guess I should say. I went to church with my mom and dad. We did the typical, you pray before dinner, pray at bedtime, things like that or whatever. So just have a particular day, or I don't know of a particular day. It's just, just knowing who Jesus was. It's just something that I've known all my life. Now, I grew up Lutheran. And so part of when you're a Lutheran, they have a confirmation class at the age of 12 or 13, around there. So they really kind of talk a lot about who Jesus is. You do a lot of memorization of Bible verses. You study things like the Lord's Prayer and some other things. And at the end of that, you're supposed to go before the church and kind of declare your faith in Christ or whatever. So I think during that particular class is when I really kind of really understood more who he was, who Jesus is, and what he's done for us. But even after making that declaration, I continued to go to church. Even through college, I went to church and everything. But it wasn't until I was about 30 that I really started to develop a closer relationship with who Jesus was. And so at that point in time is when I really started to wanting to serve, really getting into what do I want to say? serving and just wanting to know more and more about him.
And that story is not uncommon for a lot of us that, that came to the knowledge of who Jesus is as children. I know I got to hear, we got to hear Brian tell his testimony here not too long ago. And he described it almost as, matter of fact, when he was talking about when he was 6 or 7, he made his first profession of faith. And almost that it wasn't that he got saved over and over again, but each time he made a profession of faith, it was a little deeper. There was a deeper understanding of who Jesus is and what he did.
Yep.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? Yours is almost just the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't grow up in the church. With my mom, we didn't go to church. Every great once in a while, the church bus would come by and we would get on. It wouldn't be very often. But when we, when I was in the military and stuff, my ship was in a collision at one point back in '89, and then after that, a guy that was in the same bunk. It's kind of like a three-tier bunk system in the military, in the Navy, and he invited me to come to the church he started going to and stuff. He said he heard me talking in my sleep and stuff. So I ended up going to the church he was going to in San Diego. He didn't have too many sailors going to church, so I wasn't one of these guys that went out and got drunk all the time. I mean, I drank and stuff, but I didn't do near, kind of, if you compare yourself, which I try not to do, but I wasn't as bad as the rest of them. But you know what? I was a sinner, so I was bad at, I was bad and I was, unsaved. But I feel like that's when I was saved, was when I was in the Navy, was when I was saved. Debbie and I, when I got home, I started going to the church she was. So I went through the adult confirmation at the Lutheran church. And then I think I started becoming a Christ follower more when we were at the church that we came from before we came to Crossroads, where I wanted to actually follow Christ. And that's when I feel like my faith actually developed a lot more, was then. And then my time with Crossroads, I think it's really developed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Which I think we could all, as family, and as family who've really grown up together. When we started 15 years ago together, we were all kids in a lot of ways. Of course, when you guys started coming to Crossroads, we were all like Daniel and Kristen's age.
Yep.
Daniel, Kristen, Damon, Sussex, yeah.
Yep.
That's just crazy.
Literals, yeah.
Yeah, literals, yeah. That's wow. Yeah, when we did the live stream with Bonnie, she was Bonnie can't talk about her time and her tenure with the church without referring to how much I've grown up and gained weight, but yeah,
have grown up.
just we've all grown up together in a lot of ways. So is there a particular passion that either of you are currently pursuing, or maybe a need that you're feeling called to meet, that you've not currently been involved in, or something maybe you've not always been doing, but maybe a passion that you're pursuing, or a need that you're feeling called to meet?
To me, I guess I would say, and this is kind of, I don't know if this is going to answer your question or not, but I personally want to learn more about praying. And so that's kind of what me and a good friend from the church or whatever are kind of on this journey of praying together, kind of as a prayer partner. through good times and bad times. There's days that we're both frustrated or one of us is frustrated, and, we'll shoot out a prayer. And it's not necessarily even calling on the phone or being in person, just even doing it via text. I mean, there's sometimes when you just can't pick up the phone for whatever reason, people are around or whatever, but even just sending a prayer through text. So that is kind of, and just seeing, all these prayer warriors. I mean, that's what I want to be more like. And so that's what I, kind of what my passion is right now.
Yeah. Are you have you kind of found any like roots in the Lectio 365 or the PrayerMate app? Have you found either of those helping you?
Yes, I just, in fact, I think it was the Lectio one. It's the one that I just recently started. It was like a week or two ago. I know you put it out beforehand, but I just thought, well, I'm going to take a look at that. So yes, I've done that with the person I'm praying with. I mean, and this is kind of a new thing or whatever, is actually praying verses. And so that's kind of been a challenge, because before I would just always whatever came to mind or whatever. And sometimes, when you don't have those verses that are memorized, it's kind of hard. So I just kind of been going in and looking up verses, or if I come across something and it's like kind of really cool. It's like, okay, well, what am I going to pray about tonight? And, I might look up a verse, and then something will just hit me, like another verse, and then boom, it all comes out, dear God, or God, this is what I want to pray for. So it's really kind of cool. When you get scared or nervous, especially with the COVID virus. I mean, so many verses on trusting God. And so praying back those promises really have helped. I'm a worrier by nature. Thank goodness Mike's not. So I joke around and tell him that I'm going to worry enough for both of us, so he doesn't need to worry about it. But,
I just don't worry about
it. But, because there is a lot being homebound, and with Mike being furloughed, there is so much that we can just focus on and just get so nervous about and scared about the future. But when I prayed those verses about him, trusting him, just giving it all to him afterwards, it's just like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to try to do more of.
Yeah, that's good. I am loving both of those apps equally for different reasons, but I know I'm that guy that sad to say, I used to make fun of people, pastors who read prayers. And they'd get up and they'd open up their book of prayers and they'd read a prayer, and I think, oh, how cheesy is that? You're reading a prayer out of a book. But as I grow older and mature and grow in my faith, of course, I've been a follower of Jesus since I was 8, was my original profession of faith. And so prayed on my own and been taught to pray years ago. But it's just amazing when you read the prayers that are written in Scripture as prayers, or when you read some prayers of some of the spiritual giants of the past, and who's George Mueller, who was he's gone down in history as one of the greatest prayer warriors that ever lived. And just when you spend, have you ever been around people that you can tell by the way they talk, they've been spending a lot of time around so and so. They just start to talk like that person. And it's not that we can't form our own prayers with our own minds. It's you learn the depth of how to pray. And I've never even thought to pray about that before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what I've seen too on the apps or whatever, some of the prayers, it does kind of trigger some other thoughts or whatever. And so what I see that for myself, what I do is I may read their prayer, but then I continue on because it's like, oh yeah, well, you mentioned that now. Here's some other things I want to pray about.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps me in my prayer life.
Absolutely. It just kind of stimulates it. That's why, you know, even praying in a group together, sometimes people are like, I don't know why I should have to pray with other people. It just develops your prayer life.
Yeah.
And I know I feel like I spend a lot of time like with Lectio 365 and Prayer Mate trying to convince people it's not about reciting a prayer. It's not like, okay, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord control to keep, you know. It's not just learning a prayer to recite. It's there's just different prayers, and it just grows your depth of need and dependence on God, as well as the depth of your faith. What about you, Mike?
Probably right now, and I mean, I've led life groups before, I've done studies before and stuff. I'm trying to be a little better on when I lead, to be a little deeper in my conversation. You know, I've always considered, you know, a facilitator. I just ask a few questions here and there, and you know, and I've always felt like that hasn't been a strength of mine. I've never really been, you know, the teaching type person. But you know, we're doing the book that the church has been doing. We were doing kind of reading it together as a life group to start with, but we've kind of gone away from that the last couple of weeks, and I'm trying to have a little better game plan, a little better, you know, kind of conversation and questions and things like that. So just I'm kind of, you know, trying to get a little better at being a teacher. You know, I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not certainly not a strength, certainly not a gift. If you ever do spiritual gifts, it's usually the last one on my list. Maybe it might even have minus numbers on it. I don't remember. So, but it's not one of my spiritual gifts. But you know, I figured that, you know, I mean, God's going to allow me to do at least some. You know, He's the one that's doing it. You know, so I'm just pulling out whatever information I can, and you know, instead of just, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Actually having concrete questions to ask, you know, things that are going to be thought provoking and actual stuff that's going to pull meat out of the conversation.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example of, you know, we talk about spiritual gifts, and God does supernaturally gift us to accomplish some things that He's designed us to do. But that doesn't mean that because something isn't our spiritual gift, we should just not do it.
Right.
You know, we talk. I know one of those. It's just a really great example of that is giving. I mean, there are some people that are supernaturally gifted in the gift of giving. I mean, they're just those people. They give you off the shirt off their back and the first layer of skin. You know, they're just that supernaturally generous. But that doesn't relieve all the rest of us of the responsibility of being generous and giving and being good stewards of what God's given to us. And it would be the same with teaching. I mean, Mike would be one of those guys that probably led his first life group when we would use the phrase, if you can push the play button on the VCR or push the play button
pretty much
on the DVD player, you can lead a small group. Because you know we've offered a lot of video-based Bible studies, and you know, if you can push the play button, you can facilitate a life group.
And usually there's already a study guide. There's already, you know, something to go off of. So you just read through the questions. You know, the last couple of weeks in the book, you know, I know Ken put together a study guide, which was, you know, some basic stuff, but I've been kind of writing down my own thoughts throughout the chapter, and you know, and trying to use that. So,
man, that is super
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. I learned something tonight. That's cool. So a couple of questions. Are introvert or extrovert?
Oh, definitely introvert.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
I think I'm more of an extrovert. I mean, I can be an introvert, I can be a homebody, but I think I enjoy talking with people. I can go anywhere and find somebody to strike up a conversation with. So
Yeah.
I take him so he could strike up the conversation or get
Yeah.
a baby.
Yeah, one of the best ways to define because I'm an extroverted introvert, and so one of the best ways to define whether you're an extrovert or an introvert is, do you draw strength from from relationships with other people, or from communication with other people, or does it zap your strength? Does it zap your energy? And yeah, how about this one? Leader or follower?
Depends on the situation. I probably tend to be more of a follower, but if there's a need, then I will lead.
Okay. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think that describes you very well, Debbie.
Yeah. How about you, Mike?
I mean, I think I consider myself a leader, but I'm a leader by doing things, and I'm a leader by, I'll get down in the dirt and I'll help you learn how to get in the dirt. I don't believe in being a leader by telling people what to do. I believe by showing people and by training them up and raising them up, and getting down there and just teaching them how to do it, and then even handing it off so you can go do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in some respects we're all even if we're leaders, we're also followers. And even if we're followers, because if everyone in the world was leaders, there would be no followers. There's got to be those roles. But everybody who follows leads in something. And so yeah, it's kind of a trick question, but yeah. All right, let's hit some fun ones. Okay, you guys ready to do some fun questions?
Sure.
As we wind up here. Are you dog people or cat people?
Dog.
Definitely dog.
Okay. Hot dogs or hamburgers?
Hamburgers.
Yeah, probably hamburgers.
Italian or Mexican?
Mexican.
Yeah, Mexican.
Ooh, you guys are similar in those. Yeah. Let's see. Mountain vacation or beach vacation?
She would probably say more of a city, so you have 800,000 things to do. Then go sit somewhere where you're setting out and not doing anything. So I would say I've enjoyed the beach more than probably the mountains. I mean, the mountains are fine, but I think the beach probably would be more fun.
Okay.
The beach is warmer. So I go for warmer.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
That is a hard question, because Mike is right. It's like, I like to be on the go. To sit back and for a week and do nothing, that's not, I'm going to go see things.
Yeah. So you're the spouse that when the family gets home, everybody has to take a vacation from vacation.
Probably, yes. Yes. When we went to Washington, D.C., I had it all laid out. We're going to go see these 5 things. And so we checked it off as soon as we got done with it. And then they all crashed by the end of the week. And then I'm like, hey, since we have free time, there's a couple of other places I'd like to go.
Yeah, she wore her parents out.
Oh, that's funny. That's awesome. Okay, one more. What's your favorite season and why?
I'm going to say summer, because it's warm. I hate being cold. The days are long. The days are longer. I think like during the winter months, and even towards the end of fall or beginning of spring, driving back and forth to Lenexa, it's usually dark when I leave for work and dark when I come home. So I really kind of hate that period of time. So when I can leave when it's light and come home when it's light, and then I can still go do something outside, that's always a plus. So I think that's why I like summer.
Yeah, I like the fall probably the best. I like the changing of the seasons. I like being able to wear shorts and a sweatshirt. Not have to wear jeans all the time, or not, and not having to wear shorts and a t-shirt all the time. I like wearing a sweatshirt. I enjoy where you don't have to mow quite as much. Where it's spring, you're mowing every week or twice a week or something. So by fall, your grass is starting to become dormant. So
Very good. Yeah, I'm a fall person. What are you?
I used to be a spring person because I love the new life. But then the reminder of the hot summer's coming. So now I'm more of a fall person because it's cooler and it's going to stay that way for a while.
Yeah. Very good. Well, so as tenured covenant partners, 15 plus years, what advice do you have? We've got several new families that have been, over the last 6 months that have just become part of the Crossroads family. You've seen people come and people go. What's your advice to longevity and fruitfulness in ministry?
Well, first I would say get involved. Involved in a life group, involved in serving, and involved in, if you have the time, do a couple of different places that you serve. That way you can learn who the family is and become part of their lives. I think we've grown the most when we were close in a close life group is when we've grown the most at Crossroads. When we're not in a life group and not serving as much, I feel like we're a little more distant, but it gives you a way to really feel that bond of Crossroads when you're involved and serving together.
Very good. Yeah. What about you, Deb?
That's kind of what I was going to say. But in addition to that, I think you just have to be obedient. So I know that there's so many people that are afraid that God may be calling them to one area to serve in, and they may not be comfortable in serving in that area. But if they're obedient, they're going to get so many blessings when they do that. I mean, there's been a number of things. So the women's retreats, things that I mentioned before, that definitely was not something I felt comfortable doing. But once it was done, yes, it was kind of a pat myself on the back, look, I did it, but I did it with God's help. There's no way that I could have done it without his help. But then it was just also a sense of accomplishment. Like, look what I can do. Mm-hmm. I can help the church. I can help serve other people by working in that particular ministry. The other thing is just to remember that church is not, it is kind of like a family. And so it's not going to always be perfect. It's not going to you're always going to hear the sermon that you want to hear. It's not always going to be, you're going to hear the songs that you want to sing. There may be people that make you upset, and that's okay. But you need to deal with that and talk to them about it, not just run off and stop coming to church or whatever because somebody made you unhappy or because whatever sermon wasn't what they wanted to hear or whatever. So you wouldn't do that with a family member. You wouldn't just go running off and never talk to them again. You gotta work through that.
Well, that's valuable. I appreciate the input from both of you. That's really good. And this is only our second one, but I'm falling in love with these. I definitely think that, and both of you, both couples that have done this have done it a little grudgingly, and it's not your favorite thing to do, but I think it's going to be that one of those lasting things that comes out of COVID-19 stay at home that we're just going to go. I think it was the best thing we ever did was to spend that time getting to know the family and being community. And so I appreciate you guys making the time to do this with us tonight. And then obviously appreciate those of you that are taking the time to watch. you'll learn a lot. I've both couples in both situations, 10 to 15 years or more that we've all known each other, and I'm learning stuff through this. So I know it's going to be helpful to others. So thanks again, Mike and Debbie, for your time.
Yep.
All right, you guys have a good night.
All right, thanks. You too.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.